Hey, well, good evening, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Progressively Yours Health and Wellness Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Dr. Imani.
I'm J. Bernard Kynes, and we are so delighted that you're here because we have a fantastic guest who will be joining us tonight. As we begin, it is part of what we do here at Progressively Yours to begin all of our shows and podcasts with the spiritual opening. It's not a religious in the context of religious thinking per se, but it is spiritual. And so tonight I want to share from the words of Dr. Howard Thurman, particularly in honor of the person in Dr. Matthew Williams, who will be speaking and sharing with us in a few moments. So first, I'd like to invite each of you to close your eyes if you wish to participate. And I want you to take in 3 cleansing breaths, as I like to refer to them, and listen to the tingshaws as we prepare. Turn inwardly. Listen to your hearts. 3 deep breaths. Mind, body, spirit. We pay homage to the ancestors for the struggle and the legacy that they've laid for us. And so as we come into this place and in this space, an opportunity for us to continue to grow and heal and transform our lives and the lives of others. Hear these words from Howard Thurman as a part of our spiritual meditation from Meditations of the Heart. How good it is to center down. Center in this context means settle. How good it is to center down, to sit quietly and see oneself pass by. The streets of our minds seethe with endless traffic. Our spirits resound with clashings, with noisy silences, while something deep within hungers and thirsts for the still moment and the resting lull. With full intensity we seek, ere the quiet passes, a fresh sense of order in our living, a direction, a strong, sure purpose that will structure our confusion and bring meaning in our chaos. We look at ourselves in these waiting moments, the kind of people we are. The questions persist. What are we doing with our lives? What are the motives that order our days? What is the end of our doings? Where are we trying to go? Where do we put the emphasis, and where are our values focused? For what end do we make sacrifices? What is my treasure, and what do I love most in life? What do I hate most in life? And to whom am I true? Over and over, the questions beat in upon the waiting moment. We listen, floating up through all the jangling echoes of our turbulence. There's a sound of another kind, a deeper note which only the stillness of the heart makes clear. It moves directly to the core of our being. Our questions are answered, our spirits refreshed, and we move back into the traffic of our daily round with the peace of the eternal in our step. How good it is to center down. Ashe,
Ashe.
namaste,
Namaste.
and amen.
Amen. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
It's powerful listening to the words of Howard Thurman. So often we ask, what is our purpose? And how do we figure that out, and how do we live our purpose? And I heard in his words, about getting into the stillness in order to tap in. And that's so very true. In our hustle bustle kind of lives, we really do have to find time to just be still.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we find the answers.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you again for that.
You're welcome.
Brother Kynes. And I am going to follow up with a little brief affirmation from the 2014 calendar, Stepping into My Power Productions, monthly affirmations for the inner child in each of us. This particular affirmation says, I am disciplined. And disciplined is an acronym for determined, intelligent, sure, creative, inspiring, practical, level-headed, interesting, neat, effective, and decisive. So, hard work. Work hard to achieve your goals and be your best. It's not going to happen just by dreaming or hoping. Do the work. Get organized and give it all that you've got, and the rewards will be absolutely amazing. Think with a clear head and get adequate rest. Set schedules for yourself, daily, weekly, monthly. Set goals too. The more structure, the more you will accomplish. This month, I will practice being disciplined. And with that, I'm going to give it back to you, and we'll get on with our program.
Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
Well, it is indeed an honor and a privilege for me to introduce our guest. Is my president. I am a graduate from the Interdenominational Theological Center, class of 1987. I served as the student body president during my year, and Dr. Matthew Williams can appreciate this. On the day of our graduation, I had about 4 of us had taken a directed studies course from Riggins Earl, and I had taken about 4 or 5 directed studies from Riggins, Dr. Earl. In my first year at the ITC, Imani, students were saying, "Don't take that Earl. Don't go to that Earl. That brother hard. That brother hard." And so I thought, well, he's the one I need to see.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly who you needed.
So every year I would take a course from Dr. Earl, and I could only get a B. Mm. The last semester that we took this course, and we were studying the paintings. There's in our chapel, we have paintings on the wall by Stella Beck of the Christ story from birth to the resurrection. Mm-hmm. And we were reading The Republic of Plato. And there was something we were reading that I got it. It was this. It had to do with Socrates talking about the dialectical tension, and so Dr. Earl said, instead of taking down that Scandinavian Christ in the chapel, we should have put him beside the Estella Beck pictures, and then let everybody do their own thinking. And I got it, and I wrote this paper that the other brothers were angry with me because I earned the A. So when we finished, when we graduated, we came back to the campus to get our grades and so forth. I had earned that A from Dr. Earl. I was more excited and happy about that A than graduating. It was the highlight of my because as Dr. Williams can attest, Dr. Earl does not.
Rough, huh?
Yeah, that brother was something else, but I loved it. So to those of you, I want to introduce my president. The Reverend Matthew Wesley Williams serves as the president at the Interdenominational Theological Center, a historically Black ecumenical graduate theological school located in the heart of Atlanta, Georgia. In June 2020, he was appointed to the permanent presidency after an 11-month stint in the interim role to lead and redesign and restructure of the historic institution, commonly dubbed ITC 2.0. Dr. Williams is a recognized executive in the field of theological education who has built national programs and partnerships among top-level leaders to advance opportunities for institutional change, faculty development, doctoral education, leadership formation, youth adult vocational discernment, diversity, equity, and inclusion in higher education. Dr. Williams brings a strong record of expertise and achievement in executive leadership, systems change facilitation, process design, strategy, theological education, and ministry to bear on his work at the ITC, his graduate alma mater. He also holds 2 bachelor's degrees in psychology and philosophy and religion from Florida A&M University. And not included on here, Dr. Williams was installed, and he can tell us exactly what year, in the Hall of Fame. I may have it corrected, at Florida A&M, and he can tell us the year in a moment. He's also an ordained ruling elder in the Presbyterian Church USA. He is the co-author of Another Way, Living and Leading Change on Purpose, published in 2020. He's originally from Chicago, the Windy City, resides here in Atlanta in the metropolitan area with his wife, Alexis, and their children, Zuri and Sage. It is indeed an honor, privilege, with deep gratitude to welcome a friend, a brother, president of the Interdenominational Theological Center, better known as the ITC in the AU Center, Dr. Matthew Wesley Williams. Welcome to the show.
Thank you all so much. What a joy to be with you. Thank you so much. Good to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you, and we look forward to the time with you.
Likewise.
Dr. Williams, and sometimes I may slip and say Matt, but
Please,
kind of goes like this.
Let's go that way. Just call me Matt.
Yeah. So as we begin, Matt, just kind of share with us the beginning of who is Matthew Wesley Williams. Just in your own words. We're gonna have fun during this show. We're about health and wellness.
Yeah.
But before we get into the deep of that, just kind of free associate and just tell this listening audience who you are?
What a question. And that's a question that's not as straightforward as it might seem, exactly because it's so open. But and my response to that question changes, I think, on a day-to-day basis based on what's up for me. But let me respond in this way. I am a child of the Great Migration, born and raised in that branch of the African diaspora we call the South Side of Chicago. To two first kind of 1.5 generation descendants of migrants from the American South, Marcel Hambert Williams and Reginald Wade Williams. And I was born to two activists, student organizers, whose faith and activism were one and the same. And so in that milieu, I was shaped and born and raised alongside my two siblings, Reggie and Joy. I'm also Zuri and Sage's dad and Alexis's spouse. Today happens to be my 20th wedding anniversary, my 20th marriage anniversary.
Okay.
Yeah. So
congratulations.
Thank you very much. We made it. So, you know, I take seriously, and when you ask me who am I am not just because we are, I am who we are. And I understand myself, and what it means to be human is to be related and to be in relation. You know, both to my blood and my bond kinfolk, but also to all of life. So I could say I'm Matt, but when I say I'm Matt, that means that I'm related to particular people in a particular way. And so today, that's how I choose to introduce myself. I also happen to be the president of the ITC. When I talk about my relations, and the ITC is home for me. It is a home that reminded me at a very, very critical point in my trajectory of who I am at my core, and gave me the space to go back and fetch my core, so that I might be who God is creating and calling me to become. So yeah, that's my best answer today.
Thank you for that. Tell us a little bit about your journey, your spiritual journey, and how you would define that, and how that has influenced your choices and where you are now in terms of your role as a president of ITC.
Wow, that's another big question. Well, I guess I would have to go back to some of my origin story in terms of my childhood, right? And when I first began to be aware of my connection to spirit. So not only was I born to two activists who were also faithful people, but I was also born to a mother who was the resident mystic contemplative in our house. She was, and I'm very much wired like my mother. My father, on the other hand, is he's a when I say a spiritual activist, he taps into spirit through action, right? And so and they represent, in just in the way that they were wired, two poles of who I am. And so my father, I would see my father every morning getting up before the sun got up, to exercise, to meditate. We started off as kind of Black neo-evangelicals. And so he was doing his devotion at that time, studying scripture, and that sort of thing. But that discipline was something I came to understand to be necessary to nurture the spiritual life. And so at some point, I began to try to mimic my father. And I came to understand how important it was to set aside time for study, to set aside time for prayer, to set aside time for reading. But then I also, again, had my mother, right? My mother, who one of my fondest memories of my mother's spiritual life is waking up one night after a nap. It's dark outside. There's a thunderstorm going, and I get up. Thunder had clapped, and I'm trying to find my mother because I'm scared. I go all around the house. I can't find her. And finally, something says, go out on the front porch. And I open the door on the front porch. And there my mother is in a rocking chair under an Afghan with this violent storm raging. And she's sitting in there, sitting on that porch, just as peacefully enjoying the storm, right? And there's a way in which my mother, in her stillness, both could communicate, but also be communicated to. And so, again, I had those two models of that kind of disciplined, rigorous approach to spiritual disciplines and practices, but also that natural, easy availability to the life of the spirit. And I think I benefited from both of those. And so that shaped me in some really important ways. Not to mention being exposed in the Black church at an early age to powerful preachers. My first mentor in ministry being Jeremiah Wright, where the integration between who we are and whose we are was seamless. And the integration between the spiritual life and the intellectual life was also seamless. So I was very clear from an early age when I was called to ministry at the age of 15, that if I'm going to be in ministry, I've got to prepare to serve God's people. My dad would always say, I can tell what you think about the people you serve by how well you prepare to serve them. Right. And so if I love Black people and God has called me to serve Black people in the way that we would say at Trinity, when we on first Sundays, there is no task more sacred than the liberation of Black people, and God has called us to this task. If God has called us to this task, God has called us to prepare for this task. And I knew that for me meant seminary. So that led me ultimately to the ITC after finishing at Florida A&M. And 15 years after graduating from ITC, returning as president, again, because of this alignment between how God has called me and how God has called this institution in the world. So that's a short answer.
No, it's a good one, though. Thank you.
So Matt, say more with respect to feed off of Imani's inspirational topic. You used the word discipline a couple of times in what you were just sharing about your father.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, respond to discipline as a means to nurture the spiritual life as a health and wellness necessity in the life of Black people in the community. Well, how would you respond to that? What would you say?
So the first thing I would say is that I've never been great with discipline. True confessions, right? They say, they say confession is good for the soul, but it's bad for the reputation.
No judgment here.
I appreciate that.
Yes,
so discipline. When I say discipline, I mean the consistent, regular practice of a particular thing. That and being able to kind of hold myself to that thing over time. What I have been able to do is to build habits. And what I have learned how to do is to practice something so that it actually becomes something I don't have to think about. Right. So that it becomes it becomes wired into my reflexes. And I'm no longer having to be conscious and therefore stressed about what it is I need to do. So when we talk about discipline and health, for me, discipline and health, one, is not an individual matter. So health generally is a collective and I think a communal enterprise. And I can talk a little more about my own health journey, but my health journey as a cancer survivor was made possible by having a village that surrounded me and that made it possible for me to undertake the process of developing the kind of habits that I needed. And in turn, what they also did was they developed similar habits, and it became a communal enterprise. There's an old saying in organizational literature that says if you pit a high performing individual against a poor performing system, the system is going to win every time. Right. So any kind of health or discipline requires systems around it, systems being people who are organized in a particular way to sustain and support those health practices. So when I think of discipline, I think of practices that build ways of being over time, rather than just kind of, the things we have to try to hold ourselves to, like New Year's resolutions.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about those habits. Give us some examples so that our listeners can kind of get an idea of what they might need to fine tune a little bit.
Sure. So, and we're talking about specifically physical health. One of them has to do with what's the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning, or what's the last thing you do before you go to sleep, right? And those, so waking up in the morning and waking up with the words "thank you" on my lips, to start with a prayer of gratitude.
I love that.
It sets my energy in a particular way that can make or break my morning and subsequently my day. I heard somebody say the person who owns the morning owns the day, right? Now, the interesting thing is that, in Hebrew, when you look at the story of Genesis, it says the evening and the morning was the first day. So day actually begins the night before. So how we rest has everything to do with how we rise.
Wow, that's right.
So going into sleep with some intention. We as kids, we would, say our prayers before we go to sleep. But there's a way in which even connecting consciously with our bodies, talking with our bodies, praying to the Creator, communicating with our ancestors, and setting our intentions for our rest make a difference in the morning. So for me, I don't go to sleep without a meditation, some sort of meditation. That enables my body to center down, right? To use Howard Thurman's words, and for my nervous system to begin to regulate, and more importantly, for my mind to begin to settle, so that even if I drift off to sleep, I'm not unnerved such that I wake up in the middle of the night, right? That's one, I think, very important practice that can become second nature. Another that's kind of less, it ain't that deep, but it's absolutely necessary, is water.
Yes.
Right? Drinking water. So what I, the general rule is you want to drink half of your body weight in fluid ounces per day, right? So for me that I'm 205, right? So I want to be drinking about 100 fluid ounces of water a day. Somebody will say, well, that's a lot. Well, if you break it up, so here's how that shows up for me. And I have to make adjustments based on my rhythm of life, but you build it into your rhythm. So this bottle of water is 33 ounces. When I take my kids to school in the morning, when I can take them to school and come back and drink that 33 ounces before, that'll be done before 9 o'clock in the morning, right? I'm a third of the way there.
Mm-hmm.
I fill that back up. I do that one more time before noon. Then all I got to do is do that one more time before about 6 o'clock, right? And just having that conscious routine, it impacts my immune system, my digestive system. It does have you run into the restroom at inopportune times. That's why people don't drink water, right? but building that into your rhythm makes a huge, clears up your skin, helps you rest better. I mean, just the benefits are endless. And I mean, you end up taking off weight because if you're not drinking enough water, it's like walking around with an unflushed toilet. Right?
Yeah.
That water flushes your system, and it just makes all the difference in the world. So those little kinds of things, again, not so deep but necessary, can make a huge difference, even in terms of your individual practice.
Mm-hmm. But just the discipline of taking that same bottle and filling it 3 times. You're filling it with alkaline water or good quality water?
Yeah, good quality. We got a whole house reverse osmosis water system. So we got a spigot over the kitchen sink that we fill up water on.
Right. Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, that's amazing. That's amazing. I got a note from one of my childhood friends from same elementary school as us, and we were talking about what, kind of what makes us, what helps us to contribute to life and makes us better. And he said something about leaving people better than I found them. That's Michael Hill from New Rochelle. Yay! Yeah. That's we always want to leave people better than we found, first found them. So absolutely. That was a nice surprise.
That's beautiful.
I was thinking about Thurman as you were speaking, Matt. I want to share this and see where it takes you in response to this theme, health and wellness. Very short from, again, the inward C. These words: I hear in every person an inward C. And in that sea, there is an island. And on that island, there's an altar. And standing guard before that altar is the angel with the flaming sword. Nothing can get by that angel to be placed upon that altar unless it has the mark of your inner authority. Nothing passes the angel with the flaming sword to be placed upon your altar unless it be a part of the fluid area of your consent. This is your crucial link with the eternal.
Yeah. What a Thurman. Man. And let me just say how grateful I am for the centering down and for this one that you selected. They're very timely for me. So thank you for that. What this brings up for me is I appreciate the fact that you all are dealing with health holistically. And what this brings up for me is the ways in which operating from some source other than that nerve center of consent is a recipe for dis-ease, right? So there's another Thurman, really, I think, one of his better known speeches was the baccalaureate address that he gave at Spelman in 1980, known as The Sound of the Genuine.
Right.
And he says that there is in every one of us something that waits and listens for the sound of the genuine in ourselves.
Right.
He says if you never hear the sound of the genuine in yourself, it's better that you had never been born.
Right.
Because the unique, I'm using the word spirit print that the Creator placed on you will never be fully realized, because you are the only one. You are the only you that has ever been born and will ever be born. And what he says is that if you never hear the sound of the genuine, you will always be on the ends of strings pulled by somebody else. And this, for me, this goes back to this idea of health as a communal practice. Because when I think of that sound of the genuine for us, for Black folk in particular, that has to do with reclaiming our ways of knowing, our ways of relating to the land, to food, to our bodies, and the ways in which we have been duped to believe that we're only as worthy or as valuable as what we produce. So we end up on these hamster wheels of economic so-called productivity that drain us and literally kill us. That is being on the end of strings that others pull. Right? That is the opposite of paying attention to that nerve center, not just of individual consent, but of that communal nerve center. That enables us to Sankofa, to go back and fetch the core of who we are. And to operate in that way, right? I mean, listen, I think every now and then rage rises up. and I think about how absurd, evil, and unconscionable it is. That over the last 500 years, we could call something civilization, but it has literally threatened our ability to exist on this planet.
True. It's so true.
And what species tears down their own habitat and makes it unlivable for their own species in pursuit of some artificial symbol we call money? That is communal dis-ease. Right. And prior to that, 500 years ago, there have been thousands upon thousands of years of practice and practices and medicines that our people and other indigenous traditions have had that have helped us be in right relationship with the planet and one another, right? So when I think about the nerve center, when I think about the sound of genuine, it's not just the individual thing. It has everything to do with kind of a reclamation and a not just kind of going back into the past and recreating what we did, but really bringing forward the best of who we are, what we have that's in our veins, to forge our future now, which is in peril.
You're spot on. I was just given a tremendous gift, and you may already have this in your library, and I've just begun reading it. And just in the first few pages alone, the author, I'm going to present it.
Earl Conrad, The Invention of the Negro.
And he lays out, as a white person, exactly the blueprint that we are living and fighting today in terms of trying to heal, and lays out the strategy from the beginning of how the Portuguese and the others, with the endorsement and blessing of the Catholic Church back there then,
right.
to help start this evil system that we're trying to fight and help heal in our people today.
Mm-hmm.
And it is so deeply rooted, as you said, hundreds of years ago. And it's in our, not only in our psyche, but in our genes, in our neurological patterns on a cellular level.
Mm-hmm.
And so this communal health and healing of our whole selves that you articulate so accurately is so very, very, very important. That's why Imani and I want to do the type of show that we're doing, because we have a variety of guests from that speak on and address various topics as health, because we're interested in helping to heal and transform our people in particular.
Yes, sir.
And my second trip to Ghana just helped to reinforce that just a few months ago. Mm-hmm. So thank you for that that centering piece that Thurman is pushing us to get at as a communal, not just on the individual level.
Right. And I appreciate that for the community perspective. My background is in public health. I retired from CDC back in 2010 and got to work with communities all over the country, specifically in HIV prevention and health disparities. I was the head of a huge program. But of all the work that I did at CDC, traveling the country and around the world, some of the most meaningful work that I've done, I was working with the sheriff of DeKalb County and running programs for the incarcerated. They got a book coming out about that experience. But just touching people's lives and realizing, the whole thing of, namaste means, the divine in me greets the divine in you, and that's really how I approached that work at the jail. And so many people just appreciated being seen, and being touched. But I also encourage them to go back to I would do meditations with my classes, and we would always kind of go back to, why are you here? What is your purpose? What are you really meant to do in this lifetime? Part of you remembers that, but because of all the confusion and the noise around you, and sometimes circumstances beyond their control, they don't really remember what it is, and therefore keep kind of floundering and making bad decisions. It's like once you hone in on what your purpose is, things get real clear and you get real focused and targeted, and you can, do your work. So it happens at all different levels. I've taught the same stuff to elementary school kids and to seniors. Everybody needs that reminder that they're here uniquely on purpose to do something in this lifetime, and they need to really get with it, because life is short. It really is. So
that's right. Yeah, we all need somebody to see us.
Yeah, absolutely.
We all need somebody to see us. Again, this is not an individual endeavor, and I have to give honor to my wife, my partner, 20 years. There's this Thurman's definition of love. He says it's to be completely known and totally accepted. Right. And that's the gift that Alexis is to me. Right. She knows me, all about me. Right. and she accepts me completely for all that I am. And I think we all need at least somebody, one body,
one body,
one body who
Yeah.
who can see what we can't see in ourselves,
Mm.
and can kind of call us to the best of who we are. And sometimes that happens just with the kinds of questions that those are what we call self-awakening questions.
Mm-hmm.
That are gifts that you offer to another person, not to lead them, but to really invite them into an exploration of what's most important to for them. So yeah, we all need that. And I'm so grateful. I've been blessed with more than one somebody. But thankful I get to walk in this life with somebody who does that for me on a consistent basis.
That's the name for compassion, and compassion is an element where I'm seen, heard, I'm understood, and with the gentleness to help me to respond to that centering moment, that center core that Thurman is talking about when someone is up close and personal.
Mm-hmm.
Side to help you see more of yourself in a way that helps you to transform your own life in a loving way.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I keep coming back to ITC, and even this space is pictured behind me.
Yes.
I often say that ITC both changed and saved my life.
Mm.
And here recently, we tried to capture that in our convocation this fall. We used Toni Morrison's notion of the clearing to talk about what we do at the ITC and why it's been such a gift to so many of us. And I don't know if y'all remember that scene in the movie Beloved, but of course in the book Beloved, where baby Suggs, Holy, goes into this wooded area and invites the community that were formerly enslaved folk to come. And people talk about baby Suggs as a preacher, but I think that actually reduces what she did. She was more of a facilitator and a choreographer. And she tells, women laugh, men dance, children cry, and then everybody kind of changes roles and invites them to participate in the full spectrum of human emotion together, right? And then she does this. There's this speech where she tells them, "Love your hands, love your heart, love your flesh. Here in this place, we flesh that weeps and dances." She said, "But yonder, they don't love your flesh."
Wow.
They would flay it.
They would flay it.
They would, and so she says, and then at the end she says, "Love your heart, for this is the prize," right? But there's something to be seen in a way that indicts the systems that don't see us, and it creates that inner armor that helps us to kind of gird up ourselves even as we go out to face yonder. And for me, that's the gift, both in family but also institutionally. And I think that speaks again to the way that even Black institutions have a role to play in our wellness, in the way that they build us up from the inside out, to face what we're going to face.
Yeah, and add to that, if you would, how the outstanding work that you're doing at ITC 2.0 in helping, and as I can testify to as well, helping with the formation of those who come to receive theological education, that they receive more than just a theological education to go out and serve. But as you move through the grounds of the ITC, just the interaction in the communal element in and of itself, as well as in the classroom, and does a transformation of the students in a way that they must go out and serve and help transform the world. How is your leadership and movement today continuing to help carry that tradition on?
The funny thing is that I'm the first person in the permanent role of president that's also an alum.
Wow.
So I know personally and intimately the gift that happens on this campus, or that happens in the experience of education at ITC. And to be honest, the communal nature of the work has been difficult to navigate since COVID, right? Because we've been in and out of in-person engagement, but we've been able to create experiences, and also, of course, what happens in the classroom is second to none. But to the extent that we've been able to gather, to create opportunities for us to be in space together. When I'm just thinking about how when our doctoral students came together for their intensive earlier this semester, for that week, the way in which it was just a transformational space in which they were ring shouting together, and in a very short period of time, folks felt a sense of safety in community and could be vulnerable with one another, such that this is a head and heart journey, that also shapes people to recognize I'm not just going out to. We talk about the folks that we cultivate and send out into the world as prophetic problem solvers, right? That they're not just going out to preach, teach, and administer sacraments, but we're going out to actually figure out in the heart of communities how to build alternative realities and solutions and systems to the things that plague our people. And so that requires a level of humility. That requires the ability to listen deeply, both to the needs, but also to the gifts and intelligences within communities. And so those are the kinds of skills, but also practices that we're trying to cultivate with our students throughout the course of their time at the ITC. So God be with us as we do this work. But that's the kind of work we're doing and the kind of leaders we're trying to cultivate.
Can you share with our listening audience why have a solid theological education for our communal religious leaders is important and vital, especially in times like these where there's a major, not only religious, but primarily a spiritual shift that's taking place? Why is theological education for our leaders important?
Yeah. So theological education, here's what I say is that education is the process by which a community builds its capacity to solve its problems and co-create its future. Right? Mm-hmm. Anything else is just training. It's not the process by which you become doc or reverend. It's not the process by which you enter a privileged clergy class. Right? It's a process by which a community builds its capacity to solve its problems and co-create its future. And it's not just about becoming the resident theologian in the community where everybody comes to you for answers. That's also not education. That's self-aggrandizement. And so for leaders, theological education is important because what it helps us to do is to actually peel back the layers of much of the crap that we've been taught that we thought was the law of gravity, right?
Right.
And to recognize, wait a minute, these are actually just ideas that came about at some place, at some time, by some people for some reason. Mm-hmm. And we actually have the ability to think for ourselves, right?
Yes, we do.
And to listen to the Creator who has not stopped speaking for what we're called to do in this moment for our people and for God's purposes, right? So theological education gives you the ability to unpack the stuff that we've inherited and to sift out, as scripture says, rightly divide the word of truth. Rightly divide the word of truth. Study to show thyself approved, right? That you might be a workman that need not be ashamed, rightly dividing the work of truth. That's what theological education enables us to do. And my hope is that at the ITC, it prepares folks to go out and to build solutions and spaces in communities and with communities that help to free our people to be all that we've been called and created to be.
We had one comment again from one of my childhood friends, Michael Hill. He asked if you're familiar, well, I'm asking if you're familiar with the book entitled The Jewish Phenomenon. And he said that's something that needs to be researched and explored. So we can check into that, Michael. I'm not familiar with it, and neither is Dr. Williams.
No, I'm not either.
Okay, but we'll check it out. If you mentioned it, it must be worth exploring. And we're just about out of time. Yeah. And we always find, especially all of our guests, it's like we're just warming up when we look at the clock, and our producers say you got 5 minutes, and that was like 4 minutes ago.
Right.
So right. We're just about there, but we so appreciate you. I can't call you anything but Dr. Williams. I worked at Morehouse School of Medicine too, so
you can call me man.
And we use the titles there, so I've got to give you the respect. But we ask most people, we hope that we can. Bella, you're making noise. We hope that you'll be able to. She's trying to get attention down on the floor. Bella, we hope that you're open to coming back and having more discussions, because there's so much to talk about.
I've enjoyed
so, man, we have 2 minutes. Is it possible for, if anyone from the listening audience wants to make a contribution to ITC, that they could do so? If so, what would you say? Could you say it quickly, and Janet and Toya can type it in?
That's a good point.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. We would welcome all contributions to the ITC, and you can go to itc.edu, itc.edu. And make a contribution there to support historically Black, African-centered theological education that is for the development, the wellness, the well-being of our people. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. So, in parting words, what would you like to leave on the hearts of the listeners tonight, from your heart to their heart, regarding what your heart leads you to say as we farewell?
Well, I'm going to trust what comes up.
Thank you.
And I'm going to trust these words from Adrienne Marie Brown in her book, Emergent Strategy. She says, we are in an imagination battle. And she says, I often feel like I'm trapped in somebody else's imagination, and I must engage my own imagination to break free.
Wow.
So my prayer and hope for all of our people is that we would engage our own imagination and recognize the ways in which we've been trapped in somebody else's dream, and engage our own imagination to break free.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much. Powerful words to end our show on. We're grateful to you. We're grateful to our listening audience and people who've written comments in the side. We just so appreciate you listening in and participating and sharing with us. The author of that book, Michael said, the book is The Jewish Phenomenon. The author is Stephen Silbiger, Silbiger. So we'll get. Thank you, Michael. So yeah, we'll check that out, and everyone have a wonderful evening.
Wonderful evening.
Come back next Tuesday, same time, same place. And who are we having next week? Next week we have an artist from the community. He's a visual artist, a poet. Brother Kenneth Zaki. Some people call him the mayor of the West End. I mean, he's just a beautiful, beautiful person, very creative, humanitarian, just a genius. So he's going to be, he's coming from the same community, different perspective, but Jules, I hope you listen in.
Beautiful.
Okay. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you. Most appreciative.
Likewise. Enjoy being with you.
Amen. Ashe.